You're listening to the Barbell Voodoo Podcast with your host, Jacob Facig. This podcast is brought to you by Paleo Works, locally owned meal prep kitchen with a passion for paleo. They want to make it easy for you to reach your nutritional goals and to stay on track. They offer heat and eat paleo meals, athlete recovery meals, and bulk macro items. Their meals feature 100% grass-fed beef and all-natural hormone and free-range chicken and pork. Pickup locations all over Middle Tennessee, as well as some delivery options for a small fee. Paleo Works wants to make the nutrition the easiest part of your day. This podcast is also brought to you by NutriShop Franklin. Swing by NutriShop Franklin for free in-body scans, free samples, and unrivaled customer service. And when you do, tell them you heard about it from Jacob on the Barbell Voodoo Podcast. But hey, no worries. If you don't live in Franklin, you can check them out in Murfreesboro or Knoxville. Today's podcast is brought to you by Float Alchemy. Float Alchemy has modern, natural, and effective tools for fast recovery, more flexibility, and focus. We offer flotation therapy, cryotherapy, Normatec recovery, infrared saunas, and more in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. For Barbell Voodoo listeners, we're offering a one-time special price on our CrossFit Recovery Pack. Normally, that's $162. You get one 60-minute float, one whole-body cryo session, a 40-minute sweat in our infrared sauna, and 30 minutes of Normatec leg recovery system for only $100. Go to floatalchemy.com/barbellvoodoo to purchase your CrossFit Recovery Pack and use the code VOODOO at checkout to get $62 off the regular price. They also have Kombucha Tap Room. Try their painkiller. The kombucha is packed with anti-inflammatories, including fermented ginger, turmeric, and willow bark, as well as hemp CBD. It is the perfect recovery drink to hydrate and heal from the inside. Today's podcast is also brought to you by the Hot Room Yoga Studio, located in Cool Springs on Seabourn Lane. So you're strong, but how well do you move? Yoga at the Hot Room will help you recover quicker from those tough workouts and increase your range of motion so you can do better in the gym, bringing you pain relief and stress relief. You don't have to be gummy to get started. The knowledgeable instructors provide clear and concise instruction for beginners and are committed to helping you get the most out of each yoga class. Visit the website, thehotroomtn.com, and claim your 3 classes for $20 intro special. Don't let aches and pains slow you down. Get started today. As always, thanks again for tuning into this podcast. Please make sure you subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, leave us a comment, let us know you're out there and digging what we're doing. We are so thankful that you are listening and a part of what's going on here. As always, check out Barbell Voodoo private label. We'd love to be a part of anything you have going on. In the meantime, enjoy the podcast. Ready to rock and roll? Feel good? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Rich Froning. You're listening to the Barbell Voodoo Podcast.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Barbell Voodoo Podcast. This is number 55. I feel really professional that I can announce which number it is now on the recordings. Look really good. But I am sitting down and joined with Christy Phipps. Is that right? Did I say that right?
You did.
Man, nailed it. And so she is one of the CrossFit coaches at CrossFit Cool Springs, and she has been CrossFitting for about 5 years. She is a, quote, everyday CrossFitter.
That's what I am, Jacob. Everyday CrossFitter.
I love that. So we connected over the social medias, and it's been fantastic. And you sent me this amazing thing. She did something that's a weight loss resume. Is that what it is?
That is. It's a weight loss resume.
It's incredible. Like it's your whole story, like in resume form.
Right.
And so you can kind of follow along, and it's real brief in terms of hitting the highlights along the way, but it's incredible. And I don't remember who you said made you do that. but you can tell me that in a minute. But it's great because there's so many times, like, I don't know about anybody else that listens to this, but for me to go backwards, I can remember chunks. And those chunks change, and then I forget other chunks. Yes. And so I need to be disciplined and probably do something like that. But it's really cool. But your unique story, you reached out and talked about. I had a blog about weight loss surgery and stuff, and how it freaked the crap out of me.
Yes.
And you were like, "Hey, if you need somebody to talk to somebody who is thinking about that, I'm your girl." And I was like, this is fantastic. Okay. So from that point on, which was months ago, I was like, we got to have you on the podcast and talk about your experience, not only through weight loss surgery and then recently, having the skin removal surgery, right?
Yes.
But also how you got to that point and why you got to the point or whatever you kind of want to talk about with that. But, so I'll, welcome to the show, and I would love to hear your story on
Thanks.
All those things.
Thanks for having me. I'm a little nervous. Like I said when I came over, I'm just an everyday CrossFitter, so I'm not quite sure why anyone would be interested in my story particularly, but I'm glad to share it. So the impetus for the resume was actually when I decided to do weight loss surgery. I did it through Vanderbilt. And part of the Vanderbilt process was that you filled out this application. And part of the application was a question, what weight loss methods have you tried before? And it was about 4 lines. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
I have been dieting not just my entire adult life, but back into my teens. Mm-hmm. Hey, Bella.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, Bella, the super dog.
So I really struggled with what I was going to put on these 4 lines. And I'm like, it doesn't even fit this format. So when I started thinking about it, it was like, it's really, I've done this my whole life, truly, like a person who's had a job their whole life. Yeah. My job has been weight loss since I was an early teen. So I put together the resume and went from there. That's why I did it. So.
Yeah. So at what point did you start battling that? Like you started, I don't know, changing the way you eat or whatever. How did it start for you as like a kid? Was that something that someone told you or something you just kind of like picked up on or what?
I was a chunky kid, right? So I started when I was, I guess, really the first time I would have been a freshman in high school, and my mom just said, we're going to tackle this, because I had grown up primarily with my grandparents, and I ate like grandparents would want to feed their kids, right?
Are they Southern grandparents?
They're Southern grandparents.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
Right. So I grew up on everything my granny would feed me and my grandfather would feed me, and I was a tubby kid. Yeah. So my mom said we were going to get control of this, and I went on Weight Watchers at 14. So I lost a considerable amount of weight. Mm-hmm. I walked every day. I was on the track team in high school, but I've always been, you see me, I'm like 5'9", I'm kind of broad shouldered. So I'm kind of a larger person regardless. But I kind of got control over it for a while, and then it started there. I can go back into more, I guess I should start at the beginning. So, when I was...
Your life didn't begin at age 14?
After that, right? So when I put weight back on after my mother was killed in a plane crash. So when I was 17, she was in a plane crash, and, I just kind of went into this depression for probably 8 or 9 years and gained like 150 pounds. Mm-hmm. So from that point, I tried, as evidenced by the resume, I tried literally everything on the market. Well, not literally, but almost everything on the market. As far back as I can remember doing Stop the Insanity with Susan Powter, the low fat thing. Yeah. And I'm sure that probably totally screwed up my metabolism for the rest of my life. And I'm going to blame it all on her, because we all now know that is so completely opposite of what we should be doing. But I started with that. I had personal trainers. I did the cardio. I did 10 miles on the elliptical machine every Saturday. I did all of those things.
So, and how long was that between your mom's passing and then like, what did you say, a year and a half?
No. My mom died when I was 17, and I remember very little of my life between 17 and 26.
Okay.
I just almost blacked out. I remember so little. But I know when I was 26, I kind of woke up from this haze and said, what has happened to me?
So like 9 years, you're sitting in a dark well of depression and sadness and just like trying
Sleeping
to figure out how to do life all over again.
I had 2 semesters at UT. I am an alumni of the University of Tennessee, but I had 2 semesters where I had full course loads and 0.0 grade point averages because I couldn't get out of the bed.
Sure.
And if I got out of the bed, it was just to go get food.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that went. And then I woke up and I started doing the Susan Powder thing and going to the Bally's, all globo gymmed out.
So you, I mean, that was through college. That was, and then what'd you do after college? You go work in Nashville? Where'd you go after that?
I'm actually, I lived in Knoxville. So I started at UT in 1988. And I did not do 4 and be done. Okay. After those 2 semesters where I had the 0.0s, I dropped out of school. I was like, I should probably take some time off because this is a waste of my money. Yeah. So I actually took off 3 years and just worked. So I worked in Knoxville. And then I moved to another job and I ended up going back to school and I finished on a part-time basis. It took me about 11 years, I think, to finish school, but but with that huge break in the middle and then being a full-time, career gal and working and going to school at the same time. Okay. So I did that. And then, I'm in Knoxville. I was in Knoxville about 25 years. Okay. And then I had a midlife crisis and said, I'm going to move somewhere. I'm single and I don't have any kids to keep me here. I'd been in the same job for 19 years and lived in the same condo for 19 years. And I moved the 3 hours west to Nashville, my big move. But I was offered 2 jobs, one in Seattle and one in Nashville. So I came to Nashville. Yeah. It's a little safer, but
that would have been a heck of a move.
Yeah.
Seattle.
Right.
Goodness gracious.
Having lived in the South my entire life. So, yeah.
Goodness. Yeah. That would have been crazy. And so you just started bouncing around different diets and different things. Yep. Just would anything work or would something work and then you'd try to ease off and then gain weight and then why did you keep switching?
That is a great question. One thing that really worked for me, there was this book called Picture Perfect Weight Loss by Dr. Shapiro. And it worked really well for me. I lost about 50 pounds on it. But really, it taught me how to make good choices. It was very vegetarian-centric. Okay. I'd never really delved into the world of vegetarian eats. So it was fun and different. And I did it for quite a while. And like I said, lost about 50 pounds. And I think starting at that point, everything that I've done, like the way I eat now is based in these different things because I don't think any of them is particularly all good or all bad. They all have something to offer. And that one definitely taught me a lot. It taught me about making good food choices and that there are other things other than McDonald's that, first time I'd ever eaten a veggie burger and, all kinds of things like that. And I was vegetarian for about 2 years, but I just, I lost the 50 pounds and then, life happens and I start gaining a little more and losing a little and gaining a little. And it just wasn't super sustainable for me any longer.
I'll tell you, those Morningstar black bean spicy burgers
those
are
good.
Bomb.
They are.
Those things are so good. My wife and I were vegetarian for probably almost 2 years. Yeah. And I don't know that it was for like weight loss. I don't know. It just seemed right for a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just did it. And since we were both doing it, it was, kind of easy.
Right.
And then we'd find like weird things like here in Nashville, there's a vegetarian restaurant or a vegan restaurant called something Cow, like Wild Cow or something like that over in East Nasty. Yeah. And, I remember we ordered something. We were like, we could get like nachos or something. I don't know, something to do with like a liquid kind of cheese. And we were like, that's cool. Let's go for that. it tasted like liquid sawdust. And all I remember was eating and going like, I feel like I have heartburn, and all I did was taste it. Like, I don't know what just happened. But so, yeah, it was funny because there'd be some like really amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like, okay, you tried too hard, and now I feel hurt a little bit. But
I made it a process. So my day job is I'm a project manager, right?
Okay.
So I like to have plans, and I like to check things off lists. And that whole time I was doing a lot of journaling. So I learned a lot about not only, my eating habits and what triggered me to eat other things, and my moods when I would eat too much. I learned so much. This was probably one of the best things I've ever done. But I learned so much about myself.
So you're just naturally kind of introspective in that way? Okay.
I am. Yeah. And you'll notice in my resume that I have a whole section on like resources, like books I've read, videos I've watched and stuff like that. I learned a lot from reading. So Dr. Shapiro's book had a section on how to, do a really good food log about, counting how hungry you were when you ate, what you ate, who you were with when you ate, what time of day it was, what was your mood. So, I learned a lot about, I eat a lot when I'm tired, and now we kind of know all these things, right?
Approximately 9 o'clock every single night.
Yeah. Never.
I want ice cream. What's going on there?
What do they say? Halt. Never get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And tired for me is the one. It's when I'm tired, I will just stuff food in my face all day. Still do that.
That's interesting. I like the friend thing, like who you're
who
with.
I'm eating with. Yeah. I have a lot of friends who are men. So I get around guys and I eat the way guys eat. And I'm a girl. So I can't do that.
Well, and people are toxic, like
they are,
especially in terms of like eating, and they don't mean to be.
Yeah.
And even when you're able to successfully navigate good choices and you have a food plan and you're sticking to it, you have so many people around you that become like jealous or a little defensive.
Yes.
And so they have to comment because they haven't had the willpower or whatever to make that change and to do it. And they're a little jealous of that. So they have to comment. And so many times I've heard people get thrown off so easily with that. Like there's this girl I used to work out with at my old box, and literally years, all the people she worked with, I mean, everybody, not even like, and would just pick on her and be like, oh, come on, can't you just come to McDonald's and have lunch with us? It's not a big deal. Like they have salads there. And like you can get the apples.
Have you eaten a McDonald's salad? Ugh,
oh yeah.
Really?
So like
sorry,
she's just
McDonald's.
like, no, I brought this. They're not going to sponsor this. I wouldn't take them anyways. I don't know. It depends what the price was. No, I wouldn't take them. And I don't know. So she was like, no, just no. And so years and years and years. Now, like over the last, maybe over the last year, she has had at least a handful of people she works with begin CrossFit and start doing it because of the results that they saw in her life. Not just physically, but just the confidence and becoming more of who she is and being strong in that, And it was just, it's a beautiful thing because she would come in with tears sometimes and just be like, I'm so tired of just even trying. Like, people are just so mean. I don't want to go to work today. Like, and she's still worked the same place the whole time. And her perseverance was unbelievable. But I just didn't think about, I would never have thought about writing down who I was with as I made those food choices. Like over all the dietitians I've worked with and even like my nutrition coach, like I've never thought about asking like, well, who are you with when that decision happened? Like when you ended up eating a whole pizza or whatever, like, or drinking a pitcher of beer or whatever it is, you go, oh, well.
There were definite themes
with those guys.
And I could go through and see what they were.
That's incredible. And That's an incredible nugget right there. I tried, because like I said, I'd never delved into the world of vegetarianism. I kept a very good log. I made myself try a new vegetarian product every week and a new fruit or vegetable, something I had never had every week. And I logged that, and I knew which brands were the best veggie burgers and what brands of veggie hot dogs are disgusting, by the way. I've never had a good one. I was fixing to ask you what the good one was because I've never had. There is definite with the veggie world, good and bad. There's nothing that I found that was right in the middle when you're like, I could go either way. It's either like not ever doing that again or like I could do that again. Yeah. That's great.
Yep.
It's weird.
So I did all of that.
Yeah.
I did, at one time I did that juice thing. That guy, that Australian guy who does the juice thing.
Yeah.
I made it 10 days on a juice fast, and then I went straight to Chick-fil-A. You know, just crazy stuff. Yeah. I did, you know, and this whole time I'm trying to do all the right things, right? I'm watching my food. I'm watching, you know, I'm working out, but just doing cardio, right? Going to the Globo gym. And then I even started going to see a therapist. I had this awesome therapist.
That's great, yeah.
And I did probably another seminal moment is when I started doing Overeaters Anonymous, reading and doing the 12 steps for overeating, just like you would any other addiction, because I definitely have an addiction to food. I still have an addiction. I think it's more specifically to sugar, but I definitely have an addiction.
Yeah.
So trying to deal with that addictive personality.
Now, that is something people don't know about by and large. And because of my involvement as well in the Nashville area in that movement many years ago, it was a lifesaver.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible thing to learn, because people make the side comments like, "Oh, I'm addicted to sugar," and people don't understand. Like, no, you are.
Right.
Like, it's worse than cocaine.
Yeah.
Like, you're definitely 100% addicted. Like, you're gonna have withdrawals. You're gonna go through all these things, and you're gonna have to reconcile why you're doing that to yourself and what you're trying to fill up because you feel empty in those areas. Like,
right.
And so it was paramount to me in the beginning of my journey to be a part of that group and work through the emotional addictions that I had. And I was even doing counseling on top of that. Like, it was all like this perfect storm of mess that, like, I got these, these people around me. The group that I went to ended up just kind of not being a real healthy group. There was two of them that were in my area at the time. One of them was really unhealthy, but there was another, just like AA meetings or NA meetings. There's some really, not healthy ones, but predominantly they're pretty good. But the good ones were in Nashville, and I was too far away at the time. And so it was too much of a drive, but I would occasionally make it, and I got a sponsor, and I did it. I mean, it was beautiful. It was just a wonderful thing. And so, like, if you're someone who, I'll just put it out there, if you're someone that needs a group around you and you're going, I'm alone in this world and I cannot stop eating sugar and I cannot keep feeding my face, I need a group around me that can walk with me. Like, that is the go-to. And you can search them online. It's really
absolutely. Easy. And if you don't want to go to a group, you can do an online group. I did an online group because I don't think there was one anywhere near me either. I was in Knoxville at the time, and I did an online group, and I had an online sponsor. But just going through the 12 steps and everything was amazing. And then I was able to take that back to my therapist and thought through various issues with him. And I think the thing that did it for me, it got me on page 1 where it said in the 12 steps book that the people who have an overeating personality, it's not for lack of willpower. And I'm like, amen. I have so much. I didn't eat office food. I called it office food for a solid year. So I never ate. I at the time worked in a call center, and I would, there's always food around in a call center.
All right, we'll take a break real fast. My family comes in the door, and then we'll come right back.
This environment where there were healthy snacks around all the time. There was when I went through my interview process, there was a cafeteria, and the HR guy explained it to me as kind of like the hot bar at Whole Foods, but subsidized. So it's not as expensive as going to Whole Foods every day. So we had all this healthy food and exercise. And I actually, while I was there, are you familiar with Dr. Dean Ornish? He does this reversing heart disease program, but the Ornish program it became part of the Healthways selection of products. And I went to Sausalito, California, and learned the program. And it is very super low fat vegan. So I did that. Oh, that is the hardest thing I've ever done. But to be vegetarian and low fat was just
how do you
all the time. So that one actually lasted about 6 weeks for me. And I was like, I am done with this. And then I made the leap to paleo. So I went from, I was vegetarian for 2 years. And then actually before I left Knoxville, I did vegan. I did the Joel Furman Eat to Live program, which is plant-based, not processed. So another one of those seminal moments. I learned so much from that, and about just going to Whole Foods. Like whole, small W.
It is super hard to go back once your eyes are open.
It really is.
Like
it
in
really
terms of
is.
Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Just in general, not just veggies. But
I did a full year as a vegan, the whole nutritional flakes and everything. So did that for a year. I was doing that when I moved to Nashville, put me in that Healthways environment, where I could dress like this in my leggings and sweatshirt to work every day because at any time I could get up and go for a walk, or they had bikes in the parking garage that you could go check out from the security guy and go for a ride around Cool Springs.
That's incredible.
It was amazing. So I go from that, and then we did the Sausalito thing with the Ornish program. And then I started CrossFit, actually. So I moved to Nashville in June, and I started CrossFit in December of 2013. And then I did
trying to beat that January rush.
I had so my CrossFit story is, I guess we're there. It's kind of interesting. I have a very good friend from high school that I had met for dinner one night, and he was, this CrossFit thing, I've been doing it. I know you. I know your personality. I'm a very all in. I'm a very gung ho. I am that personality, that CrossFit type A. I want to get there and do it and do all of the things, you know. So, and I think that you asked me before why I kept changing. I would do things and I'm either all in or all out. Yeah. Right. So when I went paleo, I would do, I think my first year in CrossFit, I did 6 Whole30s. I mean, perfect Whole30s. Whole30s where you don't even have gum.
Every other month.
Yeah. I wasn't even having gum.
Yeah.
They were perfect. Everything was grass-fed. Everything was perfectly Whole30. But then I would get through my Whole30 and I would look at the scale, and you should ask me about the scale later. I have very serious thoughts about the scale. But I would come back and I would have lost like half a pound, or I would have lost 2 pounds, and I would get pissed off. Yeah. And I would go eat at McDonald's for 2 weeks. Yep. Like 3 meals a day for 2 weeks. Yeah. And, that cycle, but I kept going to the gym, but my friend is like, I know you're going to love this CrossFit thing. And I just kind of put it in the back of my mind. That was, that's probably, so I moved in June. That was probably like August. And then over Thanksgiving at home, it came back to me. And I was like, gosh, should I do that? And I picked up my phone and I texted and I was like, I think I should probably lose a little weight first. And he just said something that was so perfect, and you've probably heard it a million times, but it's, you don't get in shape to do CrossFit. You do CrossFit to get in shape. Yeah. Yeah. And the logic of it was just so crystal clear that the minute I got back from my Thanksgiving break, before I drove home, I did drive-bys of all the local CrossFit gyms. Yep. I went through, at the time, it was like CrossFit in Middle Tennessee. I went to CrossFit Cool Springs. I went to Talon. I went to all these places and just looked in the door. I didn't go in. No, because I'm a 300-pound girl. I'm not going to walk into this CrossFit place. But I would look, and I saw, like I can remember at CrossFit Middle Tennessee, I remember seeing a lady who was pregnant working out. And I was like, what is going on in this CrossFit? What is this? But and then I went to work the next day, and, I work with all these health coaches and nurses, and I'm like, hey, I want to do this CrossFit thing. What do you think about me doing that? And I actually found someone at work who was a CrossFit coach. Oh. And she sat down with me, and we talked about it, and she's like, absolutely, clearly do it. So I was on the phone, and I picked a gym in the next week and off to town. So, and I've been doing it ever since.
So were you always at CrossFit Cool Springs?
No, okay. I actually started at Talon. Okay. I was at Talon for 3 years, and then I moved to Cool Springs 2 years ago. Great. Yeah. So, yeah.
That was around when they switched. It's kind of what they were doing?
Yeah. So
they moved to OPEX. And didn't do CrossFit, but did more personal training yet?
It was actually before the OPEX thing. So I was at Talon about 3 years, and it just it stopped speaking to me. I needed something else. There are gyms, and we both know this, so you've changed gyms as well. The hardest thing I've ever done, probably in my entire life,
it's the worst,
is switching gyms, because it's your family, right? And I was new to Nashville, right? So when I moved to Nashville, I went to work, and then I went to CrossFit. And CrossFit becomes your family, but for me, it became everything, because I knew not a soul in Nashville. So it was everything, and it still is. Those are still, the best friends I have in town. So one of the hardest things for me to do, but it just stopped speaking to me. Talon was very competitor based, right? And you have those gyms that are more about the competition, and
each gym has their own kind of DNA to it. Yeah.
And the DNA at Cool Springs was very everyday CrossFit. It's the get off the couch, let's move, let's do this together. Not to say that we don't have good competitors, but I don't think there's anybody in Cool Springs that would want or is even thinking about going to regionals, right? They might do a local comp, but we don't have that fire breather mentality. It's much more about, did you get up? Do you feel good? Are you off the couch? Are we having fun together? And it's much more that kind of laid back thing. So, which takes me to actually the point where I made the decision to do the surgery. So as I was transitioning, I probably should have left a little before, but it took me about a year to really get up the strength, the mental energy to leave and go and search.
How long were you doing CrossFit before switching and thinking about surgery? Like, how long were you doing that before those kind of thoughts happened?
I was at Talon for 3 years. About the last couple of months I was there, I had started thinking about leaving probably 6 to 9 months out. About 3 months before I left, I had this thing. I think it was just, I had done the last Whole30 that I could possibly ever do. And I was just so crushed. And that was my rock bottom moment. I just woke up one day and said, if I don't do something, if something doesn't happen, I'm going to end up in a ditch with my wrist slit because I can't take it anymore. Like, I have done this my entire life, and I've probably screwed myself up because I have dieted my entire life. So I've screwed up my metabolism. My brain is screwed. Everything is screwed up, but I have been struggling with this. And at the time I was 47 years old. So,
and you've yo-yoed the whole time.
The whole time. You think about it, my first diet was when I was 14, and I was 47, and it wasn't like I wasn't trying.
Right.
I had the willpower. I was doing the things. And just, I don't know if it would, some of it's metabolism, some of it's my brain. I am a food addict. I am a sugar addict. And it just wasn't happening. So I just had this thing one day, and said, I can't do this any longer. And that day, this is going to sound really weird, but that day I happened to be staying at home, and I had on the TV. I never watched Dr. Oz. I think he's a kook, quite honestly. But that day, I had on the TV, and I was, kind of putzing around the house, and he had a segment on weight loss surgery, and I heard him say in the background that weight loss surgery is one of the most underutilized surgeries in this country, that it could help so many people. And to that point, I had been one of those people who looked down on surgery. I can do this. I can do this on my own. I don't need surgery. As a matter of fact, the people who have surgery, they put the weight back on and they look awful. Like that whole, when they redo your intestines and stuff, you don't get enough nutrients and you look drawn. And just everyone I'd met who had the surgery looked terrible, in my opinion. But then I was like, I heard him say that, and I was like, well, nothing else is working. Let's look into this. So, the whole, I read and I do research, right? So I started reading books, and there was a relatively new procedure, a gastric sleeve. It's a vertical sleeve gastrectomy. Yeah, but it's people just call it the sleeve. So I did a whole bunch of research on it.
So what basically is that?
It is, there's no rerouting of the intestine like a traditional, like what you would think of in a gastric bypass.
So there's no actual bypass.
Right. There's no bypass. So in my
anything.
mind, that meant I wasn't going to have this malabsorption thing. I was going to get all the vitamins. But what they do is it's laparoscopic also. So you don't have big cuts in your gut. But it's a laparoscopic surgery where they take out 85% of your stomach. They just cut it, pull it out one of the holes, and you're left with a little sleeve that's about the size of a man's thumb. And that's the size of my stomach now. Okay. It's just super small.
And how big are they usually?
That's how big they are.
No, I mean like a... So like comparison to a thumb, like what could you compare it to?
Like a baseball or a softball.
Okay.
You know, down to a thumb.
Gotcha.
85%. I can show you a picture.
Well, it's just for people listening, you know, like, okay, I can look at my thumb and go, okay, but like
how much?
But your what fist, does that compare?
Right?
Like a fist,
it's like
maybe.
From your fist to your thumb, right? So you take off the rest of the hand, and that's what you're left with. So I did a bunch of research. I found a program at Vanderbilt. I have a lot of respect for Vanderbilt, right? Honestly, I don't know that I would have done it anywhere else.
No, they're great.
That they have the best reputation in the community, in the medical community. So I did that. I went to a consultation there. And from the time I made the decision to doing it, I did not look back. It was a 6-month program that had to go to, like a supervised medical weight loss through Vanderbilt. You know, just all the things.
And that's before?
Before you can have it, you have to do a psychiatric test. You have to...
You have to pass those?
You have to pass the psychiatric test, yeah.
Okay.
They want to make sure that you're not... that you're not going to hurt yourself. That while you might be a food addict, you're not like doing drugs. You can't be on nicotine. You actually have to have a fairly healthy lifestyle for them to invest in your being part of the program. Gotcha. So, I just decided that was all that was going to do. So what I did when I was at that point, I was still at Talon, and I just felt that was a good time for me to make a move somewhere new where they didn't necessarily know me. And I actually interviewed a bunch of gyms, and I sat down with James, and it was just...
It's like interviewed gyms. What do you mean?
I did. I sat down. I sat down.
Like you didn't just go do a class. Like
I went
phoned
and talked.
The owners.
No, I went and I sat across the desk from owners and said, talk to me about your philosophy. How do you, because like you said, every gym has its own DNA. I want to make sure that I'm a good fit. And with
how do people take that? Is that a normal thing?
I don't know. I did the same thing when I went to Talon. So, I talked to Tara on the phone for probably, an hour. Yeah. And it was a great fit at the time.
Interesting. Yeah.
But then I just wanted to transition to a smaller, a more intimate, not quite so stressful place. And so I sat across from James, and he was not only open, I was really straightforward. Like, I have been through all this, and I am planning to have weight loss surgery. And it was like a test. If you make fun of me or if I feel like you're judging me, I'm out the door. Yeah. But he wasn't. He was completely opposite. He was. He even shared with me stories of people he knew who had it, and
that's cool.
He was very, whatever you need, I can modify the workouts for you as you're recovering. Whatever you need, and it was just so refreshing.
That's cool.
And it was great.
I've never had a CrossFit experience at any box I've been to where they have been non-welcoming, I guess. Like there's different aspects or different focuses for different boxes, 100%. Right. But I've never had the experience. I wondered if people have.
And I don't want anyone to think I'm saying that about Talon, because I'm not. Talon, I was at Talon for 3 years. I love them. I love everything about them. It was.
But their focus is different.
It was different. Yeah. I have been to unwelcoming gyms.
Really?
Absolutely.
What's that like? Like I seriously have never been to one. I've been to all over the place.
I actually, the last drop-in I did, I haven't done a drop-in since I did this really horrible drop-in in Des Moines, Iowa.
Iowa. I can't speak
I was
to that.
traveling on business. And it's a
no offense to anybody from Iowa, by the way.
It's a competitor's gym, I found out since, and they were just all kind of young and buff, and they really, I could tell, didn't want me there. I was just like, okay, peace out, y'all. And I've been almost afraid to do it since then. So I need to get back on the horse, I'm sure, because I'd had some wonderful drop-ins until that point.
That's wild.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I've literally never had that experience. And I don't know if it's because I always seek recommendations. I hardly ever go in blind. Yeah. But I did, for instance, when I was in Washington, D.C. a few weeks back, I did a bunch of research. I basically plotted out all the boxes around, and then I started researching. I checked their social media and see what's going on there. If their pictures reflect what I want to see, then that's great. And then I started looking at their programming, their pastoral programming. And then I started looking at what people are saying about them. I started looking at, their reviews and stuff. And so the one I ended up going to was stated as being the best box last year. Like it was that thing. Yeah. And I looked at their images, and it looked like kind of like ordinary people, but like fit. And so so I was like, that seems like a decent place, and had a great experience there.
Great.
But usually I ask for people's recommendations. But I've been a few places just kind of blind and gone, but I've never had anybody that was just like, I don't know. Like I've had people that would doubt my ability not knowing me.
Right.
I've had that. Which
you feel it, right?
I get that. Are you comfortable with that? That kind of thing. And they're just checking with me because, one, they're liable, and two,
the coaches I had at that particular gym never spoke to me once they took my $20. I mean, they didn't speak to me at all during the class. They didn't say goodbye when I was leaving.
That's unacceptable.
And it's like the first place I've ever gone that I didn't even buy a T-shirt. I was just like, get me out of here. Yeah. It was horrible. Horrible.
Oh, T-shirts. I've made the mistake of pre-buying a T-shirt before showing up, and then showing up and they had like all like larges and smalls. And I was like, I paid extra for this.
Yeah.
I've had some friends that got free T-shirts from me, so that's from different boxes.
I have some amazing experience from boxes in Phoenix. Like I used
which ones? I have a friend that I've met on social media.
Infernal is my favorite. I love CrossFit Infernal.
Infernal.
Yeah, Inferno I think is in California. It's CrossFit Infernal. Okay. I think they're in Gilbert.
Oh, cool.
But I love it there. Love it there.
My buddy goes to CrossFit Fury. They had one of the games or the regional shows there, like whatever they do. They had one there not long ago. But he and I have connected over the whole, just trying to get fit by 40 kind of thing.
Right.
But it's been neat. He joined CrossFit and started over the last few years, and he's been killing it out there.
It's like that first time you go into CrossFit when you're 300, I was 307 pounds. When you go into CrossFit that first time, it takes a lot of guts. Well, it also, when you're that size, even when you know the CrossFit, right?
Yeah.
It takes a lot to go into a strange gym.
So scary. So,
and you go, these people are going to judge me. And maybe a lot of that is like self-reflection because I judge other people and I try not to. But, that's one of my things with the weight loss surgery is I judged it for so long. And until it touched me, I still judged it. And, so my goal now is just to eradicate the stigma of having the surgery. People do things in life for different reasons. And until you know the path they've taken, it's not up to you to judge them.
Right.
There's probably a very good reason they're doing what they're doing. So,
I wrote about this on a blog, and I hope I never sounded that I was judging at all.
Oh, no.
Because, I've had quite a few friends that have done it, and they don't do anything as far as exercise or anything. And so to me, it's just frustrating to see. But in all honesty, the whole thing scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, well, it is.
Like it's just like I don't know. Like I'm uncomfortable with it. Like even when you're talking about like the thing, like I feel like I could start sweating. Like and I'm just like, that sounds great, but like I don't know. They take out
85% of your stomach through a hole in the side of your gut, and then it's a very difficult lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So I had to
part of me goes, that's freaking amazing that they can do that, and then I'm like stretched across going, I'm scared to death and my stomach's hurting a little bit right now. I'm not sure why. That may be phantom pain.
Well, it's been a long time that they've been doing this type of surgery. So I think it's completely different than it was 10 years ago. People don't, or I know lots of people who do this because I'm very active in that Vanderbilt community.
Yeah, sure.
I'm actually part of a group meeting that meets once a month, every month.
Yeah.
We have a social media page. I'm actually going to be in the new marketing campaign for them.
That's
I had
awesome.
like a video shoot, and they did hair and makeup, and
oh wow,
so it's super fun. But I'm very active in that, so I know lots of people who have the surgery. I've never heard anyone, knock on wood, coming through the program that we've lost, so, or have any, I had a post-operative DVT, so I'm not saying that everything,
I don't know what that is.
Deep vein thrombosis. So I had a blood clot after surgery.
Oh.
So, you put that on top of trying to recuperate. So, it's a very difficult thing. You have 2 weeks right after surgery. Some people have to 2 weeks before surgery go on an all liquid diet. And then after 2 weeks, everybody has to do a liquid diet. And then for the next 2 weeks, you are on a soft food. So you can't eat anything other than like cottage cheese and refried beans. And then you start to incorporate foods, and all the foods you like, a lot of the foods you like before you don't like anymore. My favorite food in the whole wide world was mac and cheese. I'm like, whatever. I don't eat it. Your taste buds change. It takes a lot to get back to where you can eat.
Similar to like when you stop sugar.
No.
Like your taste buds change.
Your taste buds changed when I stopped sugar.
Like things taste incredibly different. And
they
some
do.
Things, a lot of things
they taste
different.
They taste more pure when you stop sugar, right? So you taste the sweetness of fruit.
But this is just a complete change.
This is just a complete change. Like a lot of people have, and I had heard this and I was like, I hope that doesn't happen to me. Like after surgery, people don't like water anymore, so it's really hard to hydrate.
That would be incredidly challenging.
Right? I was one of those people. I was so afraid it was going to happen, and it did happen.
So what do you mean, like?
I just couldn't. Before I drink water like a normal person, and after I find it distasteful, and I had to add stuff to it or have unsweetened tea or stuff like that, and kind of like falling into bad habits I'd had from before as far as like artificial sweeteners went.
Yeah, sure.
And I think my post-operative food choices, or kind of, again, back to that, I've learned different things about food at various points. And I knew that post-operative, I was going to do what Vanderbilt told me to do for a year. So I went back on lots of artificial sweeteners, lots of low-fat stuff, but then I had to clean that out, right? So in the
so that's something that they recommended, like just to help transition, or to help you get through when everything went awry.
Well, you kind of, to transition, it is really difficult to get in enough hydration, and to do that on top of not being able to have an artificial sweetener would have been, and not liking water anymore would have been very difficult.
Sure.
I needed to be able to do things like drink premixed protein shakes, which are junk, right? I would prefer to eat a steak and get my protein that way.
I love steak.
So, since
although there is some really good chike, makes some really good protein.
Right. And I do protein, again, now, smoothies and things like that, but more natural than it was right after surgery. Yeah. I just was really tired, and I lost so much weight at first, and it was almost entirely lean muscle. So I can remember my first day back at CrossFit. It took about 6 weeks after surgery before I could go back, and I showed up, and
that amount of time for anybody is disastrous.
Right. So 6 weeks, imagine how you guys know how you feel after you haven't been at the gym for a week or two. Imagine 6 weeks. Now imagine on top of that, having lost mostly lean muscle mass. My first squat, I landed right on the floor. My legs could not support my body, and I just went flat on my butt. Wow. And, Haven was there at the time. Haven and I just sat there and laughed at me. At least I had a good sense of humor, right? I was like, day one in the books. And all I did all day was just kind of land on my butt or on my face. But I was trying. But I did that. And, then you just build back. And about a year out, I said, now I've got to clean up. So I just actually finished a whole 60.
Whoa.
Felt great
really?
for my whole 60. Yeah.
So does the what's it called? The tiger's blood, does it last longer in the 60? Like if you just keep it going, or do you just even out? Like what's the deal there?
I felt amazing. Mm-hmm. And then I had my skin removal surgery, and that kind of put me back on my butt again, for, I think it was, I kept going to the gym. That's one thing I did was much smarter this time by that time I had kind of started coaching a little bit, helping new people. My primary job as coach at CrossFit, Cool Springs is to, I'm kind of a CrossFit mom. I make sure all the new people, after they come out of foundations, we just don't throw them into a class and be done with them. I'm like their accountability partner. I make sure they know what they're doing, and then they've chosen a class to come to, and I try to go to that first class with them and work through with them and introduce them to people and make them part of the community. So that's mostly what I do. So I did that the entire time after my skin removal surgery. I had my arms done. And just being in the gym and having kept that was a big help. But I wasn't able to work out again for about 2 months.
So going back,
but the point, the point of that was that my food choices after that surgery have not been good, and I'm just now trying to get them cleaned up again. So I had this incredible 60 days of awesome, and then I had like the surgery, and I was tired, and I wasn't working out, and I went to the peanut M&Ms in the kitchen at work, that they keep stocked, by the way, peanut M&Ms in a big jar.
Oh yeah.
Oh, terrible. But, and so I'm still trying to get that. And all the time I'm going to my weight loss support group and talking with them about, you can, as a person who's had surgery, put the weight back on, right? And the way you do that is by grazing. So I can't eat a lot at one time. Even now, I can't eat a lot at one time, but I can eat all day. And that adds up to the same as if I were having big meals. So I have to be very cognizant of eating at meal times and not eating junk like peanut M&Ms. Yeah. So
do you track?
I don't. A lot of people do, but I've tracked so much in my life that I feel like I have a good handle on, and I know where I'm making mistakes. I will occasionally, if I think, and I did when I was doing this, my peanut M&M, badness. And even the people in my support group, they're like, text me and go, have you had any peanut M&Ms today? And I'm like, how did you know? I'm sitting down right now eating peanut M&Ms. It's like inevitable that they know exactly when I'm doing it. But
are you watching me?
Yeah. You have a camera? Yeah.
I have this lady that comes and works out here at my house, and the other day I passed her on the road, and so I called her because I passed her, and I waved, and she didn't see me. And she answered, she goes, can you see me right now? And I was like, no, I just passed by you. Like I was leaving Kroger's. You were driving down the road. She's like, oh, so you can't see me right now? Like, no. She's like, I just pulled into McDonald's.
Oh, wow.
I feel like you're watching me. And I was like, well, now I am.
Yeah, that's one thing I've gotten rid of. I had a terrible, terrible fast food addiction. And I haven't picked that back up. Yeah. I've probably, in the last 2 years, been to McDonald's half a dozen times, maybe. Yeah. Just like in a pinch when I was driving somewhere and had to stop somewhere, and I would go through and get like a burger and not eat the bun or something like that. But I haven't picked that one back up. But I do still have this issue with sugar. Yeah. And it is killing me, absolutely killing me.
So, okay, can we go back just for a second? I think I have questions, a lot of questions. Maybe not a lot. So you had the gastric sleeve.
Correct.
You then followed Vandy's instructions for a year. And within that year, you were saying you lost some lean muscle mass, but did you lose a lot of the fat too?
Oh, yeah.
Like what happened in that first year?
In that first year, I lost a lot of lean muscle mass. So when the point of that was just coming back to CrossFit was very difficult. Right. Not only, falling on your butt, but, having that 6 months out, and, mass moves mass. So
sure.
all my numbers were low, and I got really depressed because I couldn't deadlift 250 pounds anymore. I still haven't worked back up to that, so,
But what was weight loss like? Like if in that first year, does it spike? Does it like start real high? Does it taper out? Like what
it goes
happens?
up and down, right? It's almost like stages. Like you'll lose a bunch of weight and then it'll level out. Like your body gets like real comfortable in a place, and you just got to keep doing. You just keep doing what you're doing and doing what you're doing. And eventually you'll have another one of those big, like, bumps down again, and then it levels off and you'll plateau, but you just keep doing what you're doing. So, I would have these large, like I would lose 20 pounds at a time, and then I would be stuck for a month, and then I would lose another 20 pounds, and then it got down to where I was losing 10 pounds, but then getting stuck. And, like I made myself get down to, at least my goal before I would do skin removal surgery, because you don't want to do that too soon, was to be at 180.
Okay.
And that's kind of my goal. 180 sounds like a lot, but I am, like I've said before, I'm 5'9". I've got very broad shoulders.
That's like 135 pounds.
Right. That's so, I think in the first year I lost about 80, 90 pounds of that. And then the second year, cleaned up my diet. I think I eat a lot better foods now. CrossFitting continuously, and I lost over 120 pounds. I'm a big I don't want to say, I'm a big advocate for throwing away your scale, right? The scale is the devil, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just so depressing, right? To get on a scale, even if you just do it once a week. What if you pick the one day that week?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Right?
I've had this thought so many times.
Well, that's what happens. You pick that one day where maybe you had something that had some extra salt yesterday, or you had a great workout, right? And when you work out, your muscles get all torn up and inflamed, and you weigh more. I think you don't walk around.
If that's the case, I work out too hard every day.
Right.
That's what
and you don't walk around
myself.
The world with your weight, like a number plastered on your forehead. As long as I feel good and I look good, I'm happy with that. I do weigh, and I actually, one of the, again, books that I read was called The Diet Trap Solution. And it is by a behavior therapist. It's a cognitive behavior therapy book, Judith Beck. And it actually promotes weighing yourself every day.
Wow.
Which seems very counterintuitive, but I did it. And you become numb to the number.
Really?
It doesn't matter anymore. And you see those natural fluctuations, and you know, oh, look, it's up today. Ooh, but tomorrow I bet it'll be way back down. And it is. So it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can see how your body ebbs and flows.
Right.
And you become okay with it.
Right. And for me, it was that, I would lose the 20 pounds, I would plateau, and I'm like, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. It'll go down. Your body just gets used to things, and it has to know that it's not starving, and you keep going, and then it'll drop again. So that's what I've done. Yeah,
my nutrition guy is all about not the number of what you weigh, but about your percentage of body fat. And so if we're going to worry about a number, let's concentrate on that number. And if that one's going through the roof, we're off course.
Yep. So I just had my 2-year check-in at Vanderbilt last week, because my 2-year surgiversary, that's what we call it. My
surgiversary.
2-year surgiversary was on the 7th, so last Wednesday. And I went from, my BMI went from 44 to 29. So I have a 29 BMI now, and I'm 26% body fat, which is, still high, but it's actually, it's not, I'm no longer in the obese category. So that makes me super happy.
Yeah.
And it's so much better than it was. And I still, I still have some fat, but I'm also pushing 50. So I'm kind of fine with where I am. I might do another skin removal because I have a lot of, skin around my stomach, so I might have that taken care of. But I'm perfectly fine with where I am everywhere else. So
that's great.
That's one of the things that one of the reasons I really wanted to coach, is, to make CrossFit more accessible.
Yes.
To people, right? To people who need it. if you're working on your first muscle up or linking muscle, that's great. But what about the people who just can't even do a squat?
Yeah.
I want to be there for that person because I was that person. I could not squat when I walked in the door at Talon.
Yeah.
I was over 300 pounds. I had chondromalacia on my knees. So that's where you have absolutely no cartilage between my kneecap and my femur. I'm bone on bone. Yeah. And, you've got orthopedic surgeon telling you not to squat below 90 degrees. And I'm like, that doesn't really work for CrossFit. But then
I'm not getting no rep for you.
No. So that didn't work. And, and then you learn that the more you squat below 90 degrees, the easier it becomes because all the muscles around your knees start supporting it better and you actually feel better to do it. So to be there for people who are that, I think I have a definite demographic that I at first I thought about, if I could get these people in my weight loss group to do CrossFit, right? So that they don't put the weight back on and so that they're not, there are a lot of runners. And I'm like, yeah. With it, yeah.
I don't understand those people.
I don't either. So we chat back and forth about that. But
even when I've cycled a lot, we would call the runners future cyclists.
Because they're going to blow out their knees.
Yeah.
Right.
And what are they going to end up on?
Yeah.
A bike. Because they can't do that hard impact.
Yeah. So, and then I was like, but also like women, I'm pushing 50. I'll be 49 on Wednesday.
Oh, happy early birthday.
Thank you.
You will be that age when this comes out.
I will be. I will be 49. So, that older female, potential weight loss surgery, people over 300 pounds. I mean, a woman over 300 pounds. So I know what it's like. I always say, I know what it's like to do burpees at 307 and I know what it's like to do burpees at 180. And let me tell you, 180 is a whole heck of a lot better.
Yeah.
But because I've done it at 300, I know like how it felt to do that. I'm very empathetic to that. I actually feel people's pain when they're doing burpees. And I know that when I was doing them, I could do 3 and I would totally redline. Just completely out of breath, couldn't move again.
Yeah.
So to know how to get those people past that point.
And you know what to say.
I do.
When you see it happen.
I do.
And that's the difference. That's one thing that I've been amazed at. How many people will show up because it's me.
Yeah.
And they know my story and they know that, well, heck, and what's hilarious is when people show up who don't know me.
Yeah.
Not that I'm like some physical specimen of athleticism right now, but they've seen my scores on the whiteboard and they're like, okay, well, he can do a few things. And they're like, oh, you just don't know. It's so hard. And I'm like,
oh, dude, I know.
I was like, let's have a little discussion.
Well, see, on Wodify, we use Wodify at CrossFit Cool Springs, and my picture on Wodify, people are like, you should change your picture. And I'm like, I'm never changing my picture. My picture is from the 2014 games. And I am the size of a house in that picture. But it's up there to remind me and to remind people where I came from. I went to the 14 games. I was at Talon when Will Morad was there. So we all went, we all went to Carson and it was the greatest experience. And I have some of the most tragic pictures from that trip.
Yeah.
But people see that. And I don't hesitate to tell people that I've had the surgery. It's just another tool. I cannot do this with just the surgery. I can't do it just with diet, but I do all of those things. I have the surgery. I have the right diet. I have the right exercise program. I work on my mind constantly. Yeah. It's just one tool in the toolbox.
Well, and that's the deal. Like and this is what I've tried to do not only with my own life, but encourage other people to do, to just talk about their life and their story. Because although what I do works for me and my neuroses, it may not be the track that you want to choose.
Absolutely. Everyone has their own.
But and if you don't know my story, then, you might have something that relates to me completely. And like, we can walk together. Yeah. But like, if they know your story and, they think that's the only way to do it, then that's not the way either for them, so it's important, so important, in these communities that we talk about, especially within the CrossFit context, these communities are so important and so ingrained in us and so just a part of our DNA that we do together, life. And so that, if you're robbing your friends and you're robbing those who are new to CrossFit and new to your box, the opportunity to be better because you're not telling your story, and sharing your experiences.
I feel like I'll never be able to help those people who come in and want help, with doing a muscle up. I go talk to James or Weeze. But that person who comes in and needs help with a squat, I got you. I got your back. Yeah. Or who just needs that extra push to get through a workout. I got you.
Yeah. Nobody's asking me about ring muscle ups.
No, exactly.
Or even pull ups for that matter.
Right?
But
to do a pull up.
But man, if you're a mom and you've had like 3 kids and you walk in and you think like this is your last ditch effort, like I'm your guy.
Yeah.
Like let's walk through that together.
Yes.
It's like I had a small rant about the future of CrossFit on, I guess the last podcast, maybe talking about like how we celebrate people in our CrossFit boxes and how oftentimes, although we might know each other's stories and know each other's like, we have to celebrate that for people who don't know, and so it's great that we have these great fire breathers that work out here. And it's great that we have these young and accomplished, like
absolutely
athletic people. However, what about the handful of people that have lost 100 pounds in CrossFit? What about the people that have, conquered diabetes because of CrossFit and the choices that they've made to make their life better? And like, what about those people? Like, how are we celebrating that in our CrossFit boxes so that people come in and they go, well, holy crap, like, this is the place. Yeah. Like, I want my life to change. And that's the whole reason I showed up for this thing. Like,
and that's where Glassman is now, right? With getting rid of regionals and being more about health and the level 1 MD program and all of that. So I think that's the future. I think we're on the cutting edge, Jacob, you and I.
Yeah. And that's, maybe my life will turn that way one day when, I'm done doing the full-time job I do now. But I mean, there's nothing more I want than to create a place where people can come and be like, I'm desperate for my life to change.
Yeah.
And I just need people to walk with me. Yeah. And I'm like, you showed up at the right place.
Absolutely.
And so like, here's what we offer here. Yeah. There's everything. Mind, body, spirit is right here.
Yep.
Like, let's go. Let's see what happens. Let's see how far you can go and see how shocked you get along the way. Yeah. Like, let's go do that. But yeah, it's and it's part of why I love my experience in CrossFit. It's part of why I love the community and the continued relationships that I get to make doing a little podcast, and to hear people's stories about everybody's life's different. I mean, I don't know that we've had anything similar along the way with people's stories because they're all different, and yet you have a group of people that will listen to this and be like, man, that's right where I am.
If there's anybody who is thinking about the surgery, hit me up on the Insta.
If you're not a sissy like me.
No, I wish I'd been able to do it without it. I just wasn't.
I for real, like, think you're stronger, of a human than I am. I'm more look at you and go, the guts that it took to do that is astounding to me,
Well,
because I don't think I have those.
Yeah. It's been a long road.
Yeah.
So it changed my life. There are people who have had surgery who will say the worst thing I ever did was I didn't do it sooner. I don't know anyone who truly regrets having the surgery. Yeah. All I hear are my only regret is I didn't do it sooner. I don't have that regret. I know that I gave it every possible thing, every last ounce before I did it. And I'm fine with that decision.
Yeah.
I wish I were a little younger to be able to experience the thinness longer, but I'm very happy where I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe recovery a little faster. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, but
my big thing with the recovery was the blood clot. I had to do shots in my stomach twice a day.
Like yourself, you had to give them to you?
twice a day for 6 weeks.
Yeah, you're a strong person.
No, that was awful.
Yeah.
No, but you do what you have to do, right? I didn't have a choice. I had a blood clot.
Hashtag let's not stroke out. You
right?
know, like, yeah, that's
exactly.
great. Yeah.
I don't want a pulmonary embolism. I'm going to give myself
the
some
alternative.
shots.
The alternative is worse than shots.
Yeah.
You know, but.
Yep.
Still,
but I don't want to be a diabetic, and I never had anything, but I was on that road, right, to being a type 2 diabetic or blood pressure issues.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right now, I just had all my blood work done in my physical last week. There is not a single value that is beyond a normal range. I am just like spot on with everything. Every time I have my blood pressure taken these days, people are like, "You're like an athlete." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm an athlete." Because, but my blood pressure will be like 110/55. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, that's the CrossFit speaking right there. So. Yeah,
every time I give blood, every time it comes up, however many days it is, they start calling. I have O negative.
Yeah.
And I have a special, I don't know, they call it a virus or something. So it goes to premature babies.
Oh.
Like whatever I have in my blood goes that. Yeah. How do they tell you that and not have you give every time, you know? And so they have a special things they put all on my things, and they take the blood. And every time they take my blood pressure, they're like, "Oh, did you work out this morning?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, like every day. Like that's my life." They're like, "Oh, it's really, really good." And I was like, "Thanks." What do you want me to do with that?
My little sheet this time, when they did my BMI and my body fat percentage, you get a little printout from the computer, and at the top it says body type, and mine said body type athletic. I was like, heck yeah! I was so excited. Like, look, awesome. Athletic.
Yeah. Yeah, I just was at the doctor a few weeks ago and had all my blood work done, and the brand new doctor. Hadn't been a doctor in like 15 years, like a long time. Been to a walk-in clinic maybe a handful of times because of sinus turned into something. And I think I ended up with the flu last year, and so like all these little things, like it was the wussy flu. It wasn't even like the full-blown flu, you know.
The man flu.
Yeah, basically. Oh man, I can't stand being sick. Anyways, but my world doesn't come to an end. Well, maybe it does. And anyway, so I finally got it back, and this was the best doctor experience I've ever had. Usually they come in, they don't look at my chart, they don't look at anything, they just look at me and start in on me, you know, and start going, "Man, you got to start losing weight, you got to do this, you got to do that." And this doctor came in, he looked at it, and he looked at me, he was like, "So what's going on with you?" And like, and so I just told him a few things, and he was like, "Huh, that's really cool. So like you probably lost a lot of weight." Yeah.
Heck yeah.
You know, 120-ish pounds or whatever. Yeah. And he's like, "Whoa, that's a lot. That's really good."
Yeah.
and so we just had this conversation, and he's like an older doctor. Like I was kind of expecting a riot act in a little bit, you know, and plus I'm super sensitive to doctors anyways. I'm kind of like, yeah, what are you going to say to me this time before you even know me? And you know,
exactly.
And so like, as he leaves, he was like, someone's going to come, you know, I guess we'll give you the flu shot while you're here. And I was like, sure, you know, whatever. He's like, "Well, keep doing what you're doing. We'll see you later." And I was like, that was the coolest experience ever. But one of the blood things that I had the regular test of like where they test all your whatever's. And then they do a test where they test your blood to determine, I don't know, big, long words, but what type of food you should be eating. Like what your macro level should be according to your blood.
Right.
Which was the coolest thing. That's the whole reason I went to this doctor in the first place. And I was like, that's really cool. I want to have that done. I want to check out and see just like if what I'm doing corresponds with what scientifically my body is saying it would work best with.
Right.
You know, because I think in terms of like, at least over the last couple of years, I've thought of like, I want it to be like long term. I want to learn just how to eat. I don't want like to do, because I've done so many of those diets, so many of those other things, and and they've been great for a time and then not great for a time because they're not sustainable. Right. So my whole thing was like, I'm going to figure out what's sustainable, and I worked with the illustrious Jamie Free. And,
I worked with Jamie for a while.
Yeah, I love Jamie, and like. You know,
I told you I'd done everything.
Yeah. And so he's been with me, and so like now I'm trying to like do it myself and just trying to like take what he's learned, you know, what taught me over our, I don't know, almost 2 years together, you know, and then kind of incorporate, what I was given. This is the thing. And learn, try to do it long term, and just kind of figure things out. But, it's amazing. Like all the things, getting blood work back, not corresponding with the food, but just to see where I was, because I had no idea.
Yeah,
I had no idea. All I knew was like 15 years ago when things were all shot to hell. Like it was like you're going to die tomorrow.
Yeah,
kind of like things like red line, everything, and like there was nothing out of place.
Yeah.
Like everything was normal. Everything was fine. Like I was a normal human being, which is a rare time in my life I've ever been called normal. And then I saw one little thing.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, but I saw one thing, and it said high cholesterol, and I was like, wait a minute. And so I was reading, and then I went down to the notes of the person who tested, and they said, it's just high in the good cholesterol. Everything's great. And I was like, huh.
Yeah.
I've got too much greatness in me. That's what but I messaged the doctor. I was like, is that cool? Like, is everything fine? And everything's fine. He's like, yeah, you check out perfect. Like, you have nothing to worry about. And I was like, huh. Look at that.
They do a lot of micronutrient testing for us because of the surgery and the way that you eat to make sure you're not becoming deficient in anything.
Yeah, right.
So I'm very lucky. And I had an extra, with the DVT, actually my hematologist doesn't want me doing a calcium supplement.
Okay.
Because apparently that does something with your blood clotting factor or something. So normally people who have had weight loss surgery do a calcium supplement. So I'm not allowed to take that. So we have to be very careful about making sure I have enough calcium. But all my numbers, we're perfect. I had a great primary care physician as well. I just loved him.
I have one now.
I need a new one because mine just went into he left left the practice. But he when you, at least at Vanderbilt, you have to have a written letter from your primary care physician to get in the program and do the surgery. So he was super supportive. I just have had such a, I talk about eradicating the stigma. And I truly believe it's my stigma, right? Because I judged it for so long. But I haven't had any situation when I was at work, either my previous job or my current job, at the gym, CrossFit Cool Springs, everybody there has been so supportive and just oozing with it. And I'm like, I don't get any negative vibe that anybody's just doing that. They truly are very supportive of me. That my doctor was super supportive. There are people whose doctors are like, no, you're not going to do that. But mine was just, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're willing to do this. I wanted to bring it up. I thought it would be a good option, but I was afraid to. And I'm like, oh, okay. I found it on my own. Give me a letter, so everyone has just been so incredibly supportive. My friends, my family, and I'm just an open book. I will tell anybody anything. And if you want to judge me, you can judge me, but it doesn't bother me. I'm not going to hide the fact that I've had weight loss surgery. I mean, and I do know people who do that. They're like, say, how'd you lose that 200 pounds? Well, I've been running and going, and eating right. Well, I'm doing that. Plus I had a surgical procedure. So
I think people want to hear something radical when they ask that, honestly. Yeah. Because ultimately it's not a curiosity of how to do it, but what's the magic bullet so I can do it?
Yes.
And so to do something where you have to fully commit, and that goes whether or not you have surgery or not.
Absolutely.
Like either road to any kind of weight loss, sustainability, and continuing to take it off and continue to work at it is a hard, long road.
It is.
There's not a shortcut in it unless you don't work it.
Right.
And you also don't get the results you wanted, and you end up hurting yourself a lot more, because of it. But yeah, anytime somebody, asks that and they always question, he's ate well and worked out. Like kind of what people tell you. And I'm like, over like years. Like, and there was a lot of times that I did terrible, but just what I did worked for me. And and it still is a challenge. I still need to have people that I can be honest with, in my life. And, for me, the thing that I harp on over and over again is that I can't do it by myself.
No.
And it's got to be people outside of my family. It's got to be people that don't feel like it's a burden when I say something.
Right.
It's got to be people that are willing to walk with me. That's why, like the first round that I was super successful at, that wasn't like an Atkins or wasn't like God, what was the other one around that time? Atkins did great for me.
I never did get Atkins.
For a while.
That's one I didn't do.
It was fantastic. I'd be like, when I was hungry at night, I would just sit there and eat pepperonis and cheese. It was fantastic.
Nothing wrong with that.
Had heartburn like crap, but it was great, and I lost weight. Was it South Beach? South Beach was the next one after that. Yeah. But it's just for the first time, like I was realizing, so if I have somebody that's helping me navigate food, which I clearly do not get, even on my best days, I still clearly do not understand food because of my lifestyle choices. I understand them a lot more now than I did before. But the things I was reading, like these fad diets, were what was hot at the time, and that really messed up what I thought I knew about food, along the way. But so to get somebody that actually knows something, my first person was a dietitian from Vanderbilt, and she went to my church, and she was loving enough to go, yeah, I would totally do that for you. Here, just write stuff down in a journal, give it to me once a week. I'll just give you a few tweaks every week. So every week she'd come back. Here's a few things after I read. And I was like, this is amazing. I had psychological help. I had friend help. I had people that were willing to do things with me. Like cycling was a big part of it. And so I had a whole
rode for a long time.
Group of people that ended up cycling. Now we don't hardly do it at all. Like my best friend and I still have our bikes, but the other ones kind of like sold them.
My bike is hanging in the garage.
Oh, you saw mine when
house.
You walked in.
I haven't ridden. I used to be a fairly avid cyclist when I lived in Knoxville because I knew where to ride and I knew the groups and I knew the less traveled roads. And here I feel like I would get run over. So I'm just like not comfortable. And then CrossFit comes along and quite honestly, I don't have time to cycle because I CrossFit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's like golf. Like, I don't have 4 hours to go out and ride right now in my life. And I want to. I loved it. Yeah. I still love it. I still have all my bikes, but that's the thing. Well, I've loved this, and I'm remembering back when we started and you're like, I don't know that I'll have, much to say at all about any of this. But it's incredible. And I love your perspective. I love that we're, that you reached out, that we were able to connect because, I really don't think this is talked about. I don't know people that talk about it. I've had people along my life who, have had experiences but didn't talk about it. And they became really sensitive to it. Yeah. And wouldn't really communicate with it. I've had people blast me on Facebook about stuff, to which I was never bashing anything. No. At least not intentionally. But just being honest of just being like.
And the blog that you wrote that I read about the weight loss surgery was very unoffensive. It wasn't that at all. I was like, oh my God, because I went into it with he's going to badmouth the surgery and I'm going to be on him. But I was like, no, he was very even keeled and it was fair. And it's just people make different choices based on different their lives, their background and what they've done,
Absolutely. So. And, whatever works in a healthy way is good. Yeah. Yeah. And the point I think is just because we both have had success in similar but different ways. Correct. Now you would have a lot more similarities with me because you still have to do the healthy thing. You still have to make healthy diet choices and do all that kind of stuff. But I try to stay away from surgery because it freaks the crap out of me. Just when it comes down to it, that scares me to death. I think in my blog, I wrote about going to the bariatric, weight loss, seminar. Yes. And my wife was with me and I just remember shaking. Like, I don't know if I was physically doing it, but my insides were just torn to pieces. And I was just
it's not an easy thing to go through.
Scared the hell out of me.
It's scary.
Yeah. And so, it's beautiful to have an honest conversation about something that should be talked about that isn't. And those who are fearful to talk about it We need your voice for one thing, but you need to use your voice, because if you don't, you will think you can do it on your own.
Yeah.
And I think if there's any takeaway, if anybody listens to this who's had the surgery and you're just hiding, like, come into the light. You know, there's people that want to learn from you. It adds accountability to your life to make good choices, because you have to, you know, like, regardless if you have surgery or not have surgery, if you're wanting to do weight loss, it's an everyday decision at every meal, at every hour, at every emotion, that you have to choose what you're going to do in response to that. And you can't do it by yourself.
Correct.
So thank you so much for being on here. And
thanks for having me.
And I loved it. So we'll, if they want to connect with you, how do they do that? Do they do that on the social medias? What's your
oh my gosh.
On your
I think
IG?
I'm Christy P3128 on Instagram. Christy Phipps on Facebook. I'm more active on Facebook than on Instagram.
Yeah, that's the age thing.
Yeah, come see me at CrossFit Cool Springs.
There you go. Yeah, you can find her there, right? All the time. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Hey, thanks again for listening to the Barbell Voodoo podcast. Hey, if you don't mind, on your way out, if you could go by Instagram and follow our page, Barbell Voodoo Podcast. It's brand new. It's part of the Barbell Voodoo family, and we would love for you to go follow us. You can also check me out at fitby40.blog. And otherwise, we'll see you next time.